SCRs are on into two inverter legs. As you can see, the polarity of these pulses is alternating, so this is AC. By definition, AC means alternating current. And that simply means that the current changes direction, and that is what we have here. So we're converting DC to AC. Now this waveform that you see
one of many inert solid rocket motor segments arrive by rail as the facility verification phase of the shuttle program gets underway at Vandenberg Air Force Base. Two multi-purpose prime movers are utilized for the transport and delivery of the segment to the SRB refurbishment and subassembly facility. These unique vehicles provide normal roadway transport as well as railroad operations employed through the use of hydraulic jacks, which provide rail wheel guides. The clamshell-like cover is removed in one of two bays configured at the facility. Operations include the receipt and inspection of new components, dimensional checks, repair and refurbishment of components and assemblies, as well as a variety of other processing activities. With the cover secured and initial checkouts complete, the inert segment is transferred by rail to the high bay. Bay incorporates the necessary heavy hoisting and handling capabilities to offload and store incoming segments. A 200-ton movable overhead crane will work in unison with a fixed 125-ton crane to skillfully lift and rotate the segment to a vertical position. These segments, when configured with their respective aft booster assemblies and capped with nose-forward skirts, will comprise the two solid rocket boosters, which will augment over 5 million pounds of thrust to the orbiter's three main engines during the first 2 minutes of liftoff and ascent. The first solid rocket boosters built for use with a manned spacecraft and designed for reuse. Each segment will be positioned and secured in a storage stand, awaiting later buildup.
That you recall from the earlier discussion, we generated our quasi-square wave by shifting the gate command signals out of phase with one another.
The shuttle assembly building, with an overall height of nearly 250 feet, undergoes one of several mobility tests at Space Launch Complex 6. From the mechanical room on the first level of the building, electrical motors run the pumps necessary to develop the hydraulic pressure, which in turn drives the truck motors along the rails at rates of up to 20 feet per minute. In operation, the shuttle assembly building will be positioned at the launch mount, providing an enclosure and support for the erection and subsequent mating of the external tank and the orbiter. The structure also provides a shelter during the critical stacking phases of the solid rocket motor segments. This test demonstrated the mobile capabilities of the shuttle assembly building.
Or all three negative SCRs are on, and therefore the output across each transformer primary is 0. Now, another note that
on the 23rd of September, one of 5 baskets was tested as a part of the initial checkout of the emergency egress system. Designed for rapid egress of crew members from the access tower in the event of a pre-launch emergency, the basket will travel the approximate 1,000 feet downward in a little less than 30 seconds. The basket will pass through a deceleration net, which is attached to a drag chain, getting progressively heavier as the basket proceeds through the landing zone. A secondary or resting net serves as a backup system and is designed to withstand the oncoming load of a basket traveling at full speed and with maximum weight.
We got 37
The system will be tested prior to each orbiter launch.
Look down in the second case, you'll see that what happens is
The 5 baskets are each designed to accommodate 4 men, accounting for the maximum number of personnel that might be involved in the final launch preparations. Sandbags are used to simulate basket weights for the simultaneous test release of all 5 baskets.
looking at the output, which in earlier cases just across the 4 leg.
In the event of an emergency that necessitated the astronaut's immediate egress, the crew access arm could be extended, the baskets released, and the crew safe in a bunker near the landing zone in an anticipated 2 minutes.
Opposite state on the A3 and A4 the command center, now, depending upon how far we shift these edges, we can regulate the width of these pulses. There is one obvious difference here.
The payload changeout room undergoes mobility testing as system checkouts continue at Space Launch Complex 6. The payload changeout room is, in part, designed to carry the prepared payloads from the payload preparation room to the launch mount for vertical installation into the cargo bay of the orbiter. Like the shuttle assembly building, hydraulic pressure powers the structure along the rails. This facility, through its own air conditioning system, can maintain the payload as necessary during its move towards the launch mount. The payload changeout room also maintains equipment for orbital support, providing fueling and servicing capabilities. This test ensured the mobile capabilities of the payload changeout room, as well as its ability to pass through the shuttle assembly building without obstruction.
How do we turn it off? You remember the SCR discussion that we had in the earlier tape, saying that to turn off an SCR, you must remove the gate signal from it, and you must reduce the current through that SCR to 0, and then the SCR will go back into the blocking state. Well, how can we
Having completed final alignments with coastal navigational aids, the external tank approaches the docking facilities at Vandenberg Air Force Base. Shipped by barge from Louisiana through the Panama Canal, the external tank provides the liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen that fuel the orbiter's 3 main engines and forms the backbone of the entire shuttle vehicle during launch.
Many different types of methods used to commutate.
The NASA barge, configured specifically for external tank operations, is ballasted level with the dock for subsequent offload. One of 2 multi-purpose prime movers will be used to tow the 154-foot-long external tank on its journey from the docking facility to its next destination, the tank checkout facility. Fabricated of aluminum alloy, the external tank is actually 2 propellant tanks connected by a cylindrical collar that houses control equipment. The tank's exterior is insulated with a spray-on polyurethane foam that reduces heat transfer into the tanks that could cause excessive boiling of the cryogenic propellants. At the tank checkout facility, the external tank will be placed in a storage area prior to fit tests and processing in the facility's checkout cell.
Now we see the flow of current through Q1 and Q2 between the positive and negative buses. Now I've also noted
preparations are made at Space Launch Complex 6 for the first fit test of the shuttle assembly building with the mobile service tower. The shuttle assembly building moves along the rails towards the launch mount, where the payload changeout room has already been positioned. Configured with the mobile service tower, the entire ensemble will provide a complete enclosure for the shuttle components. Originally designed for the Manned Orbiting Laboratory program, the mobile service tower has undergone major modifications to accommodate shuttle operations. The tower will provide crane support to erect flight hardware, in addition to platform access to servicing areas for the solid rocket boosters and external tank components. In a similar manner, hydraulic pressure is employed to move the structure towards the launch mount.
We also have the feedback diodes, CR1 and CR2, sometimes called pumpback diodes. Two other components that are on the schematic that I didn't label
Testing ensured the capability of the structures to interface with one another and represented another in a series of milestones at Space Launch Complex 6.
And the process for commutation is the same in both legs. Now we're going to use the A1 leg as an example, and as I said, the process is identical for the A2 leg or any of the other inverter legs in the module.
NASA's 747 shuttle carrier aircraft delivers the Orbiter Enterprise to Vandenberg Air Force Base, marking the beginning of the facility verification phase of testing for the West Coast Space Shuttle program.
First of all, we removed the gate signal from
And Beaver 38, maintain north of the runway.
The Enterprise will serve as a facility verification vehicle, providing an opportunity for mechanical fit checks and practice at the various facilities, as well as evaluation of the 16-mile tow route to Space Launch Complex 6, culminating at the pad with the orbiter actually configured in a simulated launch mode. The aircraft-orbiter combination will be towed and positioned at the orbiter lifting facility for subsequent demating operations. Although two previous orbiter fit checks have been conducted, this would be the first time an orbiter would actually be lifted from the transporting aircraft.
Now obviously the current can't go down through CR2.
The facility includes the orbiter lifting frame, which provides hoisting capabilities, ground hydraulic and power systems, a lifting sling, stabilizing equipment, and access stands.
Also, it can't go back up through Q1. That would also be a current flow in a reverse direction through a semiconductor.
With the detachment of the final constraints between the aircraft and the orbiter, hoisting operations begin.
Down through Q3. Now this is not possible at this point in time because as long as Q1 is conducting, the voltage drop across Q1, as I showed you in the earlier slide, connecting CR1.
When the orbiter is elevated to a sufficient height, its transporting aircraft is towed to the parking apron. The orbiter is is then lowered to a suitable position, permitting the connection of the electrical power and hydraulic hoses required to lower the landing gear.
Now this impulse of current that we get from this capacitor is very hard for us to.
On completion, the orbiter slings will be released and preparations made for towing activities the following day.
You have to realize that the current through the transformer primary is fixed. In other words, there's a certain amount of current required there, and it doesn't really matter whether it comes from Q1 or from the commutation capacitor.
With the Enterprise successfully demated, tow equipment is attached at the orbiter lifting facility, preparing for the maiden tow across the Vandenberg flight line to the orbiter maintenance and checkout facility, some 1.5 miles distant.
Obviously, this is the goal that
with a wingspan of over 78 feet and a length of nearly 123 feet, the Enterprise has historically been at the forefront, providing valuable aerodynamic parameters during the first drop test conducted at Edwards Air Force Base. As the facility verification vehicle, the Enterprise will now serve as the Pathfinder, much as it did at the Kennedy Space Center prior to its initial launch operations. While mechanical fit checks will be conducted at the various facilities, the Enterprise's presence will afford an opportunity for personnel to simulate actual processing procedures and techniques as well. And checkout facility is defined as all the equipment, low and high bay structures, support and storage areas, and all other necessary facilities and services required for the maintenance, repair, refurbishment, modification, deservicing, and functional checkout of the orbiter. Once secured, platforms will be lowered and processing will begin.
Charge in the opposite direction, as you see here. This is how we reverse the charge on the capacitor and recharge it for the next commutation cycle. Now the very next step is to go ahead and remove the gate signal to the COM SCR. Now let's see what happens. Once we remove the gate signal to the COM SCR Q3, we see that it shuts off naturally. Once the capacitor is charged up fully, the current through Q3 will drop to 0, and that leaves the voltage trapped onto the capacitor as you see here. Now what we've accomplished in all this is that main SCR Q1 has been turned off, and main SCR Q2 is now on, and the capacitor is ready for the next commutation cycle. Now this process simply takes place over and over again in each inverter leg, each time the gate command signal changes state. Now what I'd like to do, just to ensure that you have this firmly in your mind, is to review this whole step-by-step procedure with you once more.